So yeah, this is a mad old situation where Gino Auriemma is after basically losing his damn mind and crashing out after a loss, and I love to see it, lads. I love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. Before we get on the things, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to gain back that one subscriber. Obviously, a UConn fan pissed off that I was laughing at them losing, but we're gonna laugh at Gino right here. So, Gino Auriemma, let's take a listen to this. Let's take a listen to this.
On the sideline and call.
Stephanie White finally had enough. She stood in front of the cameras and let out a truth that left the room in total silence. The constant, relentless targeting of Caitlyn Clark has reached a breaking point, and Stephanie refused to stay quiet for one more minute. She didn't just defend the rookie, she dismantled the entire narrative that has been poisoning the league for months. It wasn't just a critique, it was a full-scale demolition of the jealousy that is currently threatening to tear women's basketball apart from the inside.
I think she would. Like, Gino Auriemma is, like, he is just, like, I think the last two times he's lost in the Final Four, he did the same crap to South Carolina, or to Iowa. He did the same crap. Like, he lost his mind because Sarah Strong ripped her own jersey. Like, it is literally just a throwing toys out of the pram. And this is a guy who, oh, body language this, body language that. Yeah, it's great. It's easy to say buzzwords when you don't even have to coach. You just put in a motion offense and have all the best players. Oh, you know, we had Sarah Strong. Okay, we got the best freshman. Okay, yeah, we're going to get the best freshman. And they had three.
The atmosphere was thick with tension as White addressed the elephant in the room. For weeks, the media has been fueled by a strange, aggressive energy directed at Clark, and it is no longer about basketball. White pointed out that we are witnessing a coordinated campaign to diminish one player's impact, simply because she changed the gravity of the sport. It is a level of vitriol that we have rarely seen in any professional league, and Stephanie's reaction was the wake-up call the entire industry desperately needed before things went too far.
He said, we're looking at a unbelievable crash out. Like, he's there going and saying, being like, even Sarah Strong came out and said, I missed a shot and I ripped it by accident. I don't have the clip here, but also maybe, you know, Azare might go to fever. But even Stephen A. Smith, that was some BS from Gino Auriemma. Never ever thought I'd see the day when the greatest women's basketball coach in history would go down so classy. Horrible look. I should be called out for he got outcoached, plain and simple, and gets in her face like she did something wrong to him. Instead of being gracious, had Dawn Staley act like that, we'd be off.
What makes this situation so volatile is how deep the roots of this resentment actually go. It isn't just about a few tweets or some loud analyst on TV, it is an ideological war within the sport. Stephanie White highlighted how the old guard is struggling to handle the spotlight shifting so drastically. She essentially called out the gatekeepers, who feel like they own the game and are offended that a newcomer is the one bringing in the crowds. The mask is slipping, and the ugliness underneath is something that Stephanie found absolutely repulsive to witness.
Sources are saying she went down to the UConn bench pre-game and shook every coach's hand except Gino. Who cares? Genuinely, who cares? I mean that when I say that. Who gives a damn? Like, that's not on. That's makes no difference after the game. You lost. You lost. Gotta celebrate when you win. You beat them by what? 40 last year in the final. You beat them by 40. Like, take your win then. Like, we didn't see Dawn Staley crashing out of Caitlyn Clark. When, by the way, like,
you can see the pattern emerging everywhere, from the physical hits on the court to the backhanded compliments in the press rooms. Stephanie White didn't mince words when she described this as a hate campaign designed to humble a player who hasn't done anything but play at an elite level. She is watching legends of the game turn into bitter critics overnight, and the frustration in her voice was palpable. It is a sad state of affairs when the biggest story in the WNBA isn't the incredible growth of the league, but the systematic attempt to tear down its biggest draw.
Take your win then. Like, we didn't see Dawn Staley crashing out of Caitlyn Clark. When, by the way, like, if anyone wants to question where Caitlyn Clark, I can guarantee you Dawn Staley will put her on her fucking college Mount Rushmore. Like, she had Dawn Staley questioning God. Like it is. If you listen to the way Dawn Staley speaks about Caitlyn Clark, like, realistically, if Dawn Staley, one of the most winningest coaches in the history, like in recent history of of college basketball, like, she would absolutely not disagree with Caitlyn Clark on the Rushmore, by the way. But yeah, that is pretty much it.
To understand why Stephanie White is losing it now, you have to look at the recent behavior of some of the most respected figures in the coaching world. Take the recent display from UConn's Geno Auriemma, for example. We are seeing a legendary figure essentially crashing out after losses, showing a lack of grace that many believe sets the tone for this culture of resentment. When a coach of that stature refuses to shake hands, or blames everything but his own strategy, it sends a ripple effect through the entire sport, validating the very bitterness Stephanie is fighting against.
In the history of college basketball, like, she would absolutely not disagree with Caitlyn Clark on the Rushmore, by the way. But yeah, that is pretty much it, lads. That's like, I can't stand Geno Auriemma. I can't stand Geno Auriemma because of all this bullshit, like, holier than thou. We're better than everybody else just because we go to UConn. Every player that goes to UConn is better than everybody else because they go to UConn. I hate this fucking mentality in women's basketball, and I'm like, you hear it from, it's like, I always describe it as, so I studied to be a high school teacher, and I taught in.
The reality of Geno's recent meltdown is a perfect case study in the snobbery that Stephanie White is calling out. He was seen on the sideline calling referees names you wouldn't want to hear, completely losing his composure over a loss to Dawn Staley. This is a guy who has built a career on standards and body language, yet, he is the first one to throw a tantrum when things don't go his way. It is this "we are better than you" mentality that has created a toxic environment, where success outside of his circle is viewed with suspicion and hostility.
You're better than everybody else. It's like, oh, we have different standards. We have these body language standards. That's the most important thing. He's a fucking Karen. Like, there's nobody that crashes out more when they lose than Geno. It's just, the difference is that he wins. He has a cakewalk schedule. Every year he plays a cakewalk schedule. He gets all the best recruits. And he's a bad basketball coach. I'm not going to say he's a bad coach, but he's all the best recruits. He has won one championship since Breanna Stewart left a decade ago. One. He has gotten since then, I kid you not, he has had 4 number 1 recruits.
People are tired of the double standards that Stephanie White is exposing. When Geno, or other established figures, act out, it is labeled as competitive fire, but when Caitlyn Clark shows even a fraction of that emotion, the hate campaign goes into overdrive. White is pointing out that the rules are being rewritten in real time, just to make Clark look like a villain. The hypocrisy is staggering, and Stephanie is one of the few voices with enough courage to say that the emperor has no clothes, while the rest of the media remains silent in the face of obvious bias.
Geno Auriemma is no better a coach than Vic Schaefer. Different, sure. Geno Auriemma is no better a coach than Lisa Bluder. He's no better a coach than Carl Lawson. He's no better a coach than fucking... I don't know if he's a better coach than even... He might not even be a better coach than Jose Fernandez. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. He's not a better coach than Carl Smesco, who came out of college. Like, he's not the best coach. He's not the best coach in college basketball. I stand by that. I don't think he's the best coach. He's had the best players. He has the best players, and in fairness, he's made them believe that they're better than everyone else because they go to UConn. And the scary thing is that
Look at the Sarah Strong incident from the UConn game. The freshman was so frustrated, she actually ripped her own jersey after missing a shot. Geno tried to blame the referees, claiming they didn't see a foul, but the reality was much simpler. The pressure and the entitlement within that program are reaching a boiling point. It is a culture where losing is treated as a personal insult, rather than a part of the game. This is exactly the kind of environment that breeds the gatekeeper mentality that Stephanie White is currently battling on a national stage. Stephanie's point is that this elitism isn't just annoying, it is destructive to the future of the WNBA. When you have coaches and players who believe they are better than everyone else, just because of the name on their jersey, they lose sight of the bigger picture. They have turned Caitlyn Clark into a proxy for their own insecurities about the changing landscape of the sport. White is literally watching the transition of power happen, and she is disgusted by how poorly the veterans and the legends are handling the handoff to the next generation of superstars. The narrative that Clark is just a shooter, or that she is not ready for the physicality, is being dismantled by Stephanie White's sharp analysis. She is highlighting how the goalposts are constantly moving. If Clark scores 30, they talk about her turnovers. If she gets 10 assists, they talk about her defense. It is a never-ending cycle of moving the finish line, so she can never actually win in the court of public opinion. White's outburst was a demand for basic fairness in a league that seems to have forgotten what that looks like in the heat of the moment. Even the way Dawn Staley is treated, in comparison to Gino, tells a huge story. While Gino is crashing out and refusing handshakes, Staley is being the professional who actually respects what Clark has done for the game. Staley has gone on record saying she would put Clark on her personal Mount Rushmore of college basketball. That is a stark contrast to the bitterness coming from other corners of the coaching world. Stephanie White is using these examples to show that you can be a winner without being a hater, a concept that seems lost on many industry veterans. The Yukon mentality that Stephanie is pushing back against is essentially a form of basketball snobbery. It is the idea that if you didn't go through their specific system, you aren't one of them. This snobbery has extended to the way Clark is treated by former Yukon players in the league and the media. They treat the WNBA like a private club, where Clark is an uninvited guest who just happens to be paying all the bills. Stephanie White is done pretending that this isn't exactly what is happening behind closed doors and on the national airwaves every day. Stephanie White's frustration also stems from the fact that Clark's impact is being weaponized against her. The sellout crowds and the record-breaking TV ratings should be a cause for celebration for everyone involved. Instead, they are being used as fuel for the hate campaign. It is as if the league is offended that she is popular. White is essentially asking why the house is trying to burn down the person who just bought them a new roof. It makes zero sense from a business perspective, and it makes even less sense from a basic sportsmanship perspective. The level of aggression we have seen on the court is another point where Stephanie White has lost her cool. She has seen the "welcome to the league" moments turn into something much more calculated and mean-spirited. It is one thing to play hard, it is another thing to headhunt a player because you are jealous of her national spotlight or her endorsement deals. White is calling out the players who are masking their resentment as competitiveness. She knows the difference between a hard foul and a message sent out of pure spite, and she is calling it out. One of the most shocking revelations from Stephanie's recent comments was her take on the veteran leadership in the league. She essentially suggested that some of the older players are failing the game by not mentoring the next generation correctly. Instead of lifting the floor, they are trying to lower the ceiling for newcomers. This internal sabotage is what truly keeps Stephanie up at night. She sees the potential for the WNBA to become a top-tier global brand, but only if they can stop the infighting and the petty campaigns against their own rising stars. The media's role in this cannot be understated, and Stephanie White is dragging them into the light as well. She is tired of the hot-take artists who have never even watched a full game, but feel qualified to bash Clark's every move. These platforms are giving a megaphone to the hate, and it is creating a distorted reality for the casual fan. White is demanding that the conversation return to the actual basketball, rather than the soap opera drama that the media is so desperate to manufacture, to keep the clicks coming in at the expense of the players. Think about the pressure that puts on a young player. Stephanie White pointed out that Clark is carrying the weight of an entire industry on her shoulders, while being poked and prodded from every angle. It is an impossible situation. If she reacts, she is a diva. If she stays quiet, she is not a leader. White is disgusted by the "damned if you do, damned if you don't" trap that has been set for Clark. It is a level of scrutiny that no other rookie in the history of the sport has ever had to endure, yet, she continues to show up and produce results. The comparison to Gino Orama's behavior is so vital here, because it shows where this attitude starts. If a legendary coach can act like a Karen on the sideline and get away with it, why wouldn't the players feel empowered to act out? Stephanie White is tracing the problem back to the source. She is looking at the coaches who prioritize their own ego over the health of the game. When you believe you are better than everyone else, you lose the ability to appreciate greatness when it doesn't look exactly like your own blueprint for success. That we are also seeing a massive shift in the recruiting world that mirrors this tension. Coaches are losing control of the narrative, and they are lashing out. Stephanie White noted that players are coming into a world where they have more power than ever before. This terrifies the old guard. They want to keep the players under their thumb, and Caitlyn Clark's independence and massive platform are a direct threat to that outdated power structure. That is the real reason behind the hate campaign. It is a desperate fight to maintain control of a dying system. Stephanie White also touched on the body language standards that people like Gino always preach about. It is a convenient weapon to use against anyone they don't like. They will ignore their own players' outbursts, but hyperanalyze a single eye roll from Clark. White is calling for an end to these selective critiques. She wants the same energy for everyone, regardless of what school they went to or who their agent is. It is about creating a level playing field, something that currently doesn't exist in the WNBA because of these petty personal biases. The most powerful moment of Stephanie's defense was when she reminded everyone that the hate isn't working. Despite the campaigns, despite the physical play, and despite the bitter comments from legends, Clark is still performing at a high level. She is still drawing the crowds, and she is still making the shots that change the game. Stephanie's message to the haters was clear: you can't stop what's already in motion. You can either get on the bus or get run over by it, but the era of the gatekeeper is officially coming to a very loud end. As the season progresses, the tension is only going to get higher. Stephanie White has made it clear that she is going to be the one standing on the front lines for the truth. She isn't just a fan of Clark, she is a fan of the game's survival. She knows that if the league destroys its biggest star, it destroys its own future. Her losing it wasn't a loss of control, it was a calculated strike against a culture of bitterness that has been allowed to fester for far too long in the shadows of the professional basketball world. Ultimately, this isn't just about one player or one coach, it is about a pivotal moment in sports history, where the old world is clashing with the new. Stephanie White has shown us that the hate campaign is nothing more than a dying gasp from those who fear they are becoming irrelevant. The game is changing, the audience is growing, and the power is shifting into the hands of the players who actually move the needle. Whether the critics like it or not, the Caitlyn Clark era is here to stay, and the silence from her defenders is finally over. Why?